Hi, this is Joseph Williams, son of John Williams, and you are watching the Nerf Herder Council.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of the Nerf Herder Council, or is it the Nerf Herder Console? Anyway, I am your host, JT. We are live on Facebook and YouTube. We're live at those two fine locations every other Wednesday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Don't forget, if you are watching on YouTube, please click that like and that subscribe button so that you're notified every single time that we go live. We are brought to you by Audible. Go to audibletrial.com/NHC for your 30-day trial and a free audiobook download. And if you'd like to get some customizable Nerf Herder Council swag, which, let's be honest, why wouldn't you want that? Just go to shop.nerfherdercouncil.com. Let me bring on the much more handsome of the two of us. We are a dynamic duo, mostly because of him. My brother AJ, what is going on, man? How's it going?
I had a hell of a weekend. It's funny you say that I'm a handsomer one of the two because, well, I'm a little bit hillbilly.
Uh-oh.
Hi, how's it going? I
Wow.
lost a tooth this weekend.
Look at that. All right. I wasn't going to pull back the curtain, so that's all on you, dude.
Well, you know, especially in audio, I'm going to sound like I'm sucking on a, Werther's original for this whole thing, so we might as well at least explain why.
You know, it really doesn't sound that bad, so you probably should have kept your mouth shut. I'm just going to say.
Well, I would have kept the tooth in if I had done that.
True. Very true. All right, so you had a hell of a weekend. I had a hell of a weekend. The Browns won. I had a great time in Columbus/Hilliard, Ohio. I did not lose any teeth. Lost a few brain cells, and,
Proud to say it was part of the celebration for the Browns' win that actually cost me the tooth, so that's actually
All right.
worthwhile.
Well, no offense, but I hope you lose, let me see, what would it be? 20 or 21 more this season then. Because that means we're winning a shitload. So, all right, so this is going to be a very interesting episode. This is a Nerf Herder Council first, as I've posted on social media. We are kind of diving into the dark side. This is the first time that we have talked Trek. So get the hell off of our land. We've been suckered in by the phaser in the case.
Tonight, on a very special episode of the Nerf Herder Council.
Right. And really, dude, as soon as we came up with this idea a few weeks ago, there was really something we had to do and an invite that we had to throw out. And it's none other than our very good friend who, you know him, you love him from the chat, Mr. Joseph Wren. He is Discuss Metal Joe. And, of course, he's posing when he comes in, of course. That's awesome for the audio listeners, by the way. That's good.
Tell the truth, John. You guys got in a fist fight about talking about Star Trek, and that's why AJ is missing a tooth. It's a serious topic for you guys, right? You spent 6 years-ish talking about stories that happened a long time ago in a galaxy somewhere else, and now we're talking about stuff that's supposed to happen 200 years from now, roughly in our current galaxy. Like, is this a fist fight moment for you guys? Because I feel like that's what really happened here.
No, I'm gonna say exactly what it is because it's way cooler than that. AJ used to be a professional wrestler, and he got power bombed on his face, drunk at a party. It was an accident, and he's had a messed tooth. He's had a messed up tooth ever since, and it finally, he's celebrating the Browns win, and finally lost that bad boy. So yeah, it's way cooler than a fist fight. He's a wrestler, dude.
Victory clotheslines? That's what you're telling me?
Not really. He was really drunk at a party.
Yeah. There are some things I don't share on the stream. I'll just leave it at that. Anyway, I did need to address one comment from the chat already, Mr. Kale McLeish.
Okay.
Has nothing to do with what he said, but I do owe you a public apology because we've been emailing back and forth about show logos for your T-shirt, and then I forgot to respond, and I'm sorry. So I will email you after the show, and we'll get this done, okay?
There you go, Kale. All right. So, all right, Toomey, what are you talking? Is my connection bad or something? Toomey's
Yeah,
saying
your
something
connection
about-
is crap.
All right, then you
you're
talk.
sounding terrible.
Robot
Right.
John is in the podcast right now.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm having
well-
a bad internet signal.
Hey, I can filibuster. That's fine because I do want to clarify that John is usually the one that runs our Facebook page. So that bullshit that the Nerf Herder Council was spouting about Star Trek 6 being a problem, nope. Those views do not reflect mine.
It's not a very good film. I'm just gonna side with John a little bit on that one.
I couldn't even remember
Okay,
the damn
we-
title.
It
Then
has
we
a
have
really
another episode to
cool
talk.
ending, but everything leading up to that is kind of meh.
Okay, we are not here to talk about Star Trek 6, so we'll
Welcome
save that for another
to
episode.
the first episode of Trek AF. John, thanks for
Right.
joining me and AJ on this one. I appreciate you. Yeah, I'm sorry, John. I won't do it again.
You are not nearly a dominant enough podcast host to overtake me on my own show.
You just wait until I have access to the button in StreamYard.
So, all right, so let's jump into this. Obviously, I got to give AJ credit for, our show title tonight, which is the Nerf Herder Console. Very, very. All right, we got. How do you, man? I got to. Where does he get those wonderful toys? Batman reference there for no reason at all. So
It's because I'm
all
on the
right,
show.
Well, I'll figure it out somehow. All right, so we literally have never talked Trek, and of course, Joe, we had to have you on because you and AJ are going to be doing a Star Trek show, and you are kind of a subject matter expert where Trek is concerned. So as soon as AJ and I had this idea, we were like, all right, we got to get Joe on the show. We've got to get Joe on the show.
I
So here-
appreciate your consideration of my love for all things sci-fi, and in a world where fans of all things nerdy want to fight about who is the dominant franchise. I know it's a thing, not a he-she thing, but roll with me on this one. Fanboys is a phenomenal film, but it has a very pivotal scene that I think still happens, especially on the internet, and that is people are still arguing about Star Wars versus Star Trek. Guys, it's all good. Some of it's fantasy. Some of it's all fantasy, really. Some of it is fantasy
gonna
about
say, what are you talking about?
wizards in space, right? The other one is submarines in space. Pick your poison. It's all good.
Well, this is definitely the best of, the B franchise. Let's face it. I love Star Trek, some of it. The stuff I really like. I like the original series, and I like the first 4, maybe 5 films. I was not a Next Generation fan, and the 17,428 spinoffs, not a fan. But what I really, really like, and The Wrath of Khan is basically the pinnacle, I would say. Do you guys agree with that?
It is one
Joe,
of the
you wanna take
highest
this one?
points in the entire franchise. When you say Star Trek, I think Wrath of Khan is something. It stands on its own. It's not just a good Star Trek movie. It's a good film. It's a good bad guy versus good guy story. It's a cerebral movie, even though it came out a while back. John, you were on Discography Discussion. We talked about Van Halen. And I know I said it, but we talked about a world where eruption did not exist and then it did exist. There are things that happen in Wrath of Khan, spoilers for a movie that came out 40 years ago, that I would like to know what it was like before that happened and after that happened, because I can't fathom that. To have that high point of tragedy in a sci-fi franchise that was around roughly 15 years at that point, that had to hurt.
Hold on. I got to cut you off. How do we punt someone from our feed?
Now wait
He's
a minute.
banned from the show. Kale's
it's
banned.
It's banned from
You
the
do
chat.
not
And-
mention that film.
Okay, well, but he's got a point. Kale McLeish says, sorry, you keep saying The Wrath of Khan. Do you mean Star Trek Into Darkness? That is incredibly astute, and we will get to that later.
If I
That is
wanted
part of the
no logos.
discussion.
If I wanted to
He'll get
watch
no
Benedict
logos.
Cumberbatch
His
play
t-shirt dream
himself
dies
in a
here.
film, I would do that. That's fine.
Oh, my Lord.
It was obviously Khan, too. They were trying to sell us that it wasn't Khan the whole time. It was Khan. Obviously. That's who he's playing. Who else are you going to get to play a remake of that character? The answer is Ricardo Montalban. We have the technology.
Not at that time we didn't.
We do now,
So-
John.
Well, as AJ said, the film that shall not be mentioned. since we're already
Talking
getting
about
into
high
it.
point and low point of the franchise all in one.
Yeah. All right, so AJ, I feel that this is the peak of the Star Trek franchise. Where do you stand on that?
I feel like this is kind of like the Thor Ragnarok of Star Trek, where like the first movie, Star Trek, the not in motion picture, that's
Well
what it's been
played.
called. Really, it was so dull, and it really did not do well. This like we just took it for granted because when we saw it as kids, it was like, okay, well, this is what the movie looks like. But to be a fan of Star Trek from the original series and then only have that one movie as the only other thing of Star Trek that existed when this came out, talk about like you said, like it's like pre-eruption, post-eruption for music. This is like, pre-con, post-con Star Trek. I mean, everything about this movie just like set up the franchise from that point on. Like it stopped being a question of should we make another movie. It's like, yeah, it's a movie franchise now. We make movies, and it led to spin-offs. Like, I mean, Next Generation wouldn't have happened if the movies hadn't succeeded, and if Khan hadn't succeeded, then the other movies wouldn't have been made. So yeah, this is like absolutely. I think it has to be the high point of the franchise because the whole franchise would have lived and died on the success of this film.
Yeah.
So
No.
they nailed it.
Is this the first time in sci-fi we had something happen on TV and no one paid attention to it, but later on we're making a film and we pull from the lore of television and say, what if that guy made it out and he was just bitter? Is this the first time that happened?
It might be. Like, nothing really had that continuity back then.
Continuity
It was
didn't
crazy.
exist
I mean, hell-
in Star Trek, at least, or in sci-fi, because it was on TV. There was almost no way to watch it. VCR beta was fairly new, if it was even casually available. Recording shows off TV, etc. It was available, but it wasn't something that everybody did. Most of the time, you saw it and it went away.
Mm-hmm.
So
you raise a good point. It was really brave to like pull this old TV character out because it's not like anyone leading up to this movie could just like hit up Paramount Plus and watch Space Seed to refresh their memory on who Khan was. They were just counting on people either remembering from when the show aired or picking up on it when they actually went to go see the movie for the first time.
I watched that today, by the way. I wanted to know, was there any indication that Khan was this evil, brooding person? No, but you can do a lot with this guy really doesn't like the fact that Kirk is a little smarter than he is. That really gets under his skin.
Oh, he was a megalomaniac for sure.
Give him decades to sit on that planet and brood by himself.
Well-
I'm going to beat you. I'm not going to kill you. I'm going to beat you.
It's funny you mentioned that because I actually looked up some YouTube videos to see if I could get some behind the scenes stuff because I've never actually looked that up. The only thing I've seen to really dive into this is the director's cut of The Wrath of Khan, which is all of about 8 seconds longer than the original. If you look up the runtime, it is like the most pointless director's cut ever. Like, I think maybe somebody farted accidentally in one scene and they just happened to leave it in the director's cut. Like Bones let a squealer go walking out of the elevator or something. But I was looking at some stuff and Harv Bennett was talking about, he was going back to look at the original series. And he mentioned, like, when coming up with the idea for this film, like, that he kind of was watching old episodes. And Space Seed, which is, the Khan episode in the original series, it really kind of stood out to him. And they started wondering, like, okay, well, what would happen? Because there's a comment that Spock made, like, in the episode at the end, like, I wonder, if we go back in 100 years, if we see what sort of, like, fruit the seed you buried today has something like that, basically saying, like, I wonder what it would look like in 100 years if we go back there and see what the hell Khan's doing, is he whatever. And it kind of stuck with him. And real quick, our buddy Chris mocked us. Chris, what's up, man? Good to see you, dude. All right. Thank you, by the way, Chris, for the invite on Friday night. Chris is our good buddy from Mocktails from the Cantina, and he's doing a Rogue One roundtable on Friday night, and he invited me, and I can't make it. Oh, here he goes.
Damn.
And he says, just because you're talking Trek doesn't mean it's the dark side. Talking Marvel, on the other hand, come on now. It's, as Joe said, it's all good. But yeah, so, you know, that comment that Spock made, like, I wonder what it would look like, kind of like planted the idea in his head for what they would do in this movie, which is pretty cool, you know, and it makes a lot of sense. And, you know, I was trying to think about it because, you know, like I said, what I like about Star Trek is, you know, the original series and then the first like 4 or 5 films, you know, with that cast. And then I do like the first and third movies with Chris Pine and all that. And you know, if you think back to the original series, I don't know how familiar you are with it, Joe. We haven't ever talked about it, I'm sure, quite a bit. You're nerdy like us. But Khan really is the standout character outside of like Tribbles or, you know, the you know, man height Godzilla that Kirk fights at like 1/20th speed of motion. You know, but, you know, like Khan really was a standout character. So I actually kind of wanted to start there. I wanted to ask you guys, because, you know, Joe, you mentioned it earlier, and AJ, you guys kind of touched on it a little bit about the first movie. You know, the motion picture was really slow, and I think for fans of the series, for that to be the movie that they were given, it was like, ugh, what a fart in church that was. So, was it more of a cop out to have Khan be the central point of the second movie, or, I mean, do you consider it more intelligent or more of a cop-out? Because you could view it is an intelligent move. Let's be honest. It's a popular character. But is it more of a cop-out than it is an intelligent move? What do you guys think?
Is the character popular, or is the actor behind the character popular and able to stand toe-to-toe, not just physically but mentally, with Kirk?
Listen, asshole, it's my show. I ask the questions, you answer them, and I asked you a question. It's not about fucking Ricardo Montalban. I asked about Khan.
I think it is, actually, because you say, is he the standout character in the series? This was the 60s, man. There were no standout characters yet. There wasn't the syndication and the repeat watches that we have in hindsight. So you had the villain of the week or the alien of the week. Mm-hmm. He's an imposing character for sure. And you're right, the first movie's slow, but the movie was made to be watched in 3D, proving once again 3D is a gimmick. Occasionally we go back to it. They wanted to do 2001 Space Odyssey with random drama pieces of Star Trek. Obviously, that's not going to work. Re-edit that movie today, it'll be fine. But to find something that happened in the history of the series that the writers could go back to, they could call back to events from the series, and honestly, you don't see the fear that you see in the opening scenes of this movie. Everyone is terrified when they hear Khan and they see Khan. You know, he's that ultimate bad guy. That's the way they sell it. But watching the series, you don't get that impression because it was just the villain of the week. I mean, this is a series where people die in every episode almost, and by the end, you play the theme song, and Kirk has to walk off carrying the burden of command. They never go back and say, yeah, this was a really terrible time. Mm-hmm. Now you have Khan, a character who is supposed to be more intelligent, stronger, and he doesn't want to kill Kirk, I don't think. I have a question for both of you later on. He doesn't want to kill him. He wants to humiliate him. He wants to beat him mentally, and he can't pull it off. And that's why this is such a cerebral movie, because he's offended. You left me, and we almost died, and I lost my wife because the other planet blew up. You didn't know that? Like, he takes it so personally that somebody just dumped him on an exploding planet. I'm not saying you shouldn't take that personally. It's just the drama of the film doesn't come from the series. It comes from how are we going to move forward. And I think it was more how are we going to move forward with Star Trek, and some of the things that would happen in the original series films would lead to what happens in Next Generation. Whether they meant to or not, they were trying to move forward with everything.
Yeah, you're right. This movie was really the start of continuity in Star Trek, you know, because it was just episode of the week, villain of the week, plot device of the week, the events of the original series never really like referenced each other, and the first movie sure didn't. It was, here's Decker and Ilea, these new characters, because it was supposed to be. It was originally it was supposed to be what was it called? Star Trek: The Next Phase. They were trying to launch a sequel series, and they repurposed the pilot episode into a motion picture. So this is the first time that they decided to actually go back and reference something that had happened in a previous installment of Star Trek at all. And, from that point on, everything started to connect a little bit more and had consequences, obviously. No pun intended. But,
Consequences.
this movie, like you said, it kind of comes out swinging. Like I think they realized after the first one that they needed more action. They needed an actual like villain, not just a big giant dust cloud in space that was vaporizing things. So yeah, it kind of had more of like the Hollywood format that people rip on the new Star Trek movies because they're too action oriented. But by comparison, this was too. I mean, you got ships firing on each other. You've got that gore scene. Well, two gore scenes actually. You got the earwig, which is still creeps me out to this day.
Yeah.
And then they strung up all those bodies on the space station. Like friggin' horror movie. They're walking in and they see these bodies like dangling from the ceiling. Like, Jesus, man.
That was
If you
some
weren't afraid
alien
of Khan
stuff,
already, then now you're afraid of Khan.
Absolutely.
Yeah. It's a good point there, AJ. I was thinking about this. I rewatched the movie the other night. I had to set aside 11 more seconds of my night just to just to fit in the director's cut. And
Is that why you didn't pleasure your wife?
yeah, that's exactly why.
Yeah.
That's
okay.
exactly why.
We'll go with that.
Yeah, I'm a 2-pump chump. Full disclosure.
You could have
but
watched
yeah.
2 Girls, 1 Cup in that time.
We're not bringing that up on the goddamn show again, okay? That's disgusting. That's disgusting. Oh. Anyway, yeah. One of the things that struck me about watching the movie again the other night was that there is kind of there's kind of a creepy vibe going on in this one. There's a lot more tension, and like you said, I mean, I can't really consider it gore because I'm a huge fan of Hellraiser, so to me that's gore. This was just a couple space scientists died, and oh no, there's a puddle of blood on the floor. But it really was kind of like a darker, creepier. There's a lot of tension in this movie, like pretty much throughout, even to the point where they're out on a training mission with a bunch of kids. And a bunch of kids get blown up. You know what I mean? Like it's not, the old crew that we're used to in their single colored outfits and stuff like that. This is like these kids haven't even passed college yet, and they're getting blown up by Khan. So there's so much tension. It's a very, like I said, it's a creepier, darker vibe, and I think it works great because you don't have that in any of the other Star Trek movies. I mean, any of them. Maybe that one. What's the one I'm thinking of, AJ, with Eric Bana, who's the Romulan guy? Like,
that's the reboot in 2009.
Was that him? Okay.
Yeah, it was
Which
just
one am
called
I
Star Trek.
Okay, yeah, that one like was kind of okay. What's going on? But anything other than that, Star Trek doesn't have that weight to it, and this one really kind of did. Like Revenge of the Sith, as a Star Wars movie, is pretty dark. You got Anakin as a crispy critter, and Jedi dying and all this kind of stuff. So but Star Wars always had that kind of weight to it. There's like the emotional aspects of things. Star Trek never had that. It was just kind of like space scientists flying through space and getting into it with Klingons here and there, and sometimes the Romulans, and then there's tribbles. Like, but Wrath of Khan was different. It was really a different vibe for Star Trek, and I think that's why it works the best.
Yeah, they really set that tone right off the bat. I mean, the first scene is the Kobayashi Maru simulation, and you don't know it's a simulation at first, and you see like all of your favorite Star Trek characters dying in this hopeless, conflict, and then the thing opens and you see that it's Admiral Kirk and it's a simulation. But like right off the bat, like they're kind of bracing you for the idea that like people can get hurt and die in this. Like it's coming. And then right from the initial attack by the Reliance on the Enterprise, I mean, it's gory. People are getting blown up, and like, goddamn. Do you remember the scene where Scotty? I don't know why he did this, but he carried that friggin' ensign or whoever it was, like all the way up to the bridge in his arms. Like,
It's fun.
Take him to sick bay, stupid. But like you see him, you're like, Jesus. Okay, yes, there are stakes in this one.
Well, you know what's I never realized this till the other night. Do you know why he did that? And maybe this is something that was in the director's cut, that maybe this is the additional like fucking 7 seconds.
I know where you're going.
That's his nephew. So he says like, this is my sister's youngest or something, and I never know. I don't know if that's in the original version or not, but
No,
if
that
it
was
is,
cut.
okay, yeah. Well, it's in the director's cut, and so I was like, holy crap, did I miss that? But yeah, so that's actually his nephew.
Mm-hmm.
When
I always took that scene as Khan targeted the deck that sickbay was on intentionally, because he kept trying to take away their tricks. Like,
good point.
If I take away your sickbay, I take away your engines. Again, he's trying to beat him. He's trying to beat Kirk mentally. Okay. He's trying to get one up and finally win. He doesn't want to kill him at first. And watching it twice in the past couple weeks, I think he knew at the end he wasn't going to kill him, but he was willing to die knowing that he would win because he'd still be stranded in space.
Yeah.
He just wanted him to sit there and rot and think about what he did. And you're right. That doesn't make sense. That's definitely something in the editing room. Somebody said we have to cut this down a little bit. Well, if we don't explain it, it won't make sense. It's like Ed Wood. The audience isn't going to notice that. They're going to pay attention to the big picture. Scotty just walked through the door with a dead body. Oh, Star Trek is going a little dark here. And there was a lot of horror and anxiety-inducing moments that were in a lot of movies in the past 5 years. You said Alien earlier. Obviously, Empire is an easy reference for you can build tragedy in a movie and it still pays off for the audience. So I think Star Trek was just doing something that was going to happen a lot in the 80s. I don't want to compare what comes later to Optimus Prime or Duke and G.I. Joe and Transformers, but the 80s really tried to kill characters that people liked. That was all they knew how to do, was how are we going to get people to think our movie's great? Kill the guy they love. No, better idea. Don't kill that guy. Kill the guy he loves. Oh, now you're just screwing with people.
Yeah, survivor's guilt and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah, man. By the way, how dangerous was that engine room? Because you see the outfits they've got on. They've got basically hazmat suits on. They're wearing gloves and they got big old rubber boots and stuff. Like, were they trying to I guess this was nuclear age, so they're trying to emulate this is a nuclear reactor, is super dangerous or something. But that looks like a terrible place to work, even if things are running properly. I don't think any of those people are having kids.
You're messing with my memory on the show, AJ, because now I'm trying to think. Did anybody ever say the word containment field in the original series? Or is that something they added later on so they could not have them in big, bulky outfits?
Well,
right?
the thing about the engine room on the SS Chernobyl, or I'm sorry, the USS Enterprise,
right?
Yeah, no, another thing that I learned watching some YouTube videos, they were trying to make this a little more realistic. Like, they used a lot of naval terms. So I think they were trying to bring that aspect of realism into it, which is why all of a sudden, the uniforms were different down there. But yeah, to your point, AJ, all of a sudden this looks like, you're going to have, 3-headed kids if you're
right.
If you're working down in the engine room, and then, but yeah, that's a good point. Although I thought it was interesting, though. I mean, at least it was. I kind of like the realism aspect of it. It was kind of cool. It almost grounded it more. I enjoy Star Trek because it is so different from Star Wars, but Star Wars feels a little bit more, even though it's more fantastical than Star Trek has ever been. Something about it feels a little more real to me. But the Wrath of Khan feels real, whereas the rest of Star Trek is like, okay, it's kind of wonky, it's kind of goofy, and maybe I just have that prejudice because I watched you and I, AJ, growing up every Saturday night we watched every episode of the original series, so that's what I'm used to. So to me it was always hokey, and that's what I went in there looking to see, so
Believable is the word you were looking for, John. It's more believable because if we eventually go to space, we're going to mimic submarines, which was Gene Roddenberry's original vision. How do we move from sending one person into space? We build it a little bigger, and we send two. Now we have to send an entire crew of people. If you think back to some of the early episodes, Kirk says numbers, and the numbers are not big. Not by later series numbers. I think he said 230 people in the first series, and Next Generation was 700 plus, if not more.
Mm-hmm.
So what does that look like to me if it's never been done before? Well, we have submarines, so we would just follow that. You'd have your submarine in space, and that's an oversimplification of Star Trek, but that's what it is, and that's kind of why it works. It's a confrontation of two ships.
Yeah, they went heavy with the naval terms. They had a little like whistle thing. They followed a lot of like maritime traditions.
I won't hit the button. Don't worry.
I was gonna say, here it comes.
Yeah, right.
Sorry, go ahead, AJ.
That's why you're on the show, Joe. Come on, help us out. No, that's not the sound. You did it wrong.
Really?
You're off the show.
Good
There you
Lord,
go.
you have a friggin' sound effect all queued up, and the one time it's like appropriate to the conversation, you pull up the wrong one? What the hell is that?
I have a whole series of sounds for multiple shows, John, and guest appearances. Don't make me use my power for bad.
Cripes. Yep. Yeah, Cale McLeish. To your point,
Harper
Joe.
Torpedoes and everything. It was all submarine stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Cale McLeish says, in the dark air instead of the dark water. Our buddy the Vandalorian, Sean Hines, is busting on you, Joe. He says, you slacker.
Cale,
You
there is
blew it.
no air in space. That's one thing Firefly has gotten right that no one else has gotten right ever. Anytime they show the outside of a ship, they don't hear any sound. You see the explosion, but you don't hear it until you go inside.
Those are called seismic charges. Move on, Jesus.
I love it, man. It's such a good series.
All right,
Spoilers
so-
for next week. We're going to
episodes
talk
of it,
about
yeah.
Firefly on the Nerf Herder Council. Oh, I'm sorry. Did I book your show for you, John?
I've never seen a second of that show, and I don't know what the hell it is.
AJ.
You would actually probably no. You wouldn't get into it. It's too good.
Oh, look at that. Somebody can't keep his goddamn mouth shut, so he gets removed from the show. So, Joe, we'll wait for AJ to bring himself back in here.
All right, Van Halen Redux. Let's go.
Oh, my God.
No, JT,
So-
you already admitted that you basically tuned out of all Star Trek since, 1990 or 89. So
I didn't like it. And honestly, I think that Khan and Search for Spock, which we could do another episode on that one because I love that movie. I think that's why.
too many S's. I can't do that show.
Dude,
The
I
Search
wish you
for
would.
Spock. What?
I wish you wouldn't have brought it up, man. Like, no one would have been able to tell. I was not going to say a word.
That's fine.
Yeah, dude. The reason is because the Next Generation did not have the heart or the soul that I think that the original stuff had. I just couldn't get into it. And I don't know, maybe I was just too into, I was so used to Kirk and Spock and McCoy and all them that I'm like, yeah, who are these idiots?
See, actually, this is a case of the original creator kind of ruining his own thing. Like, people used to complain about the prequels in Star Wars because George Lucas raped my childhood and everything. Roddenberry hated this movie. He got a credit on it because he started Star Trek, but he did not have a lot of involvement, and he hated this movie.
Are
'Cause
you
it was totally
serious?
against his vision of this utopian humanitarian future.
That's right.
Like, he had very little to do with this, and he hated the direction the franchise was taking. But he had sold everything to the studio at that point. He didn't have a choice.
So you're saying Gene Roddenberry's a suck ass. And
So
the one thing
basically,
holding
Star Trek started getting good when Roddenberry had less influence because you didn't like Next Generation, and he was front and center on that one when it started. When he passed, that's when that series took a turn for the better.
So we can
It's an
officially
arguable truth. I'm prepared to argue it.
Well, so basically what we can say is that Gene Roddenberry was the Vince McMahon of Star Trek.
Yeah.
No.
Joe, you don't watch wrestling, you don't get it.
Really?
Even I barely watch wrestling, but I know what I'm talking about.
Okay. I realize present day occurrences have led you to make that comment. It's fine. We forgive you for that. It is kind of true, though, that what fans of all sci-fi seem to love this middle ground of whatever it is, it's allowed to go a little bit darker or a little bit more positive. But if you go too far in one direction, they hate that. Somebody's going to hate that. And the creator will be the first one to hate it one way or the other because it's his. He should be able to do whatever he wants with it, his or hers. It's not a him-her thing. My point being, yes, Gene Roddenberry wanted to show off the future as he saw it, where people actually got along and have commentary on political issues and social issues. That was the whole point. That was the idea of giving a group of people something to overcome every single week and show how we can all get along. Now, you can do that for so long, and Star Trek, again, hindsight is a wonderful thing because we remember it being great. It wasn't well received at first. And yet, here is an amazing film that's just a good movie on its own.
Mm-hmm.
And it has good characters. It has well-aged characters. That's something about the early Star Trek films I like, is it's a logical step forward for those characters. They're not just playing the same people. Many of them are admirals now. Some of them are captains. It logically makes sense in the context of that film. So to have someone that was just the bad guy of the week now be the cerebral, I'm going to get you. And I've been waiting a long time, and I got an opportunity when I didn't know I would get one.
Well,
and it started what would go on to be, correct me, AJ, it wasn't planned at first, but basically the second, third, and fourth movie were supposed to be a trilogy of sorts. Because everybody was trying to do Star Wars at that point.
Yeah.
Right?
I said it.
One of the other famous behind-the-scenes stories is that, Spock was killed off because Leonard Nimoy thought that the character needed to die. He was kind of done with it at that point. So he's like, look, you want to put some stakes in this? Kill my character because I don't want to come back anyway.
Not true.
And the test screenings were so negative that that's when they wrote in the cliffhanger that said, oh, well, actually, maybe he gets revived on Genesis.
That's
But yeah, the original ending, as test screenings had, was he just died. There was no cliffhanger, no hope that he was coming back because Nimoy was kind of done with the franchise at that point.
It's the scene of him touching Bones' face that was added later on for
That
continuity
and the
with
landing
the
on the planet. Yeah, that's why
Okay.
he gets the. That's why he gets the intro sequence read at the end. It's kind of like a swan song for Nimoy.
okay. Well, real
And
quick on that
then-
one. Our buddy Sean says Leonard Nimoy was the Vince McMahon of Star Trek because he's the one that made it bigger than it was after working on Khan. I would agree with that. And to your point, AJ, what I heard, I haven't heard about the test screening thing, but one of the video, and I just watched this like a few minutes before we went on the air. But Leonard Nimoy didn't want to be in the movie. Period, is what they're saying. It wasn't even like, kill him
geez.
off. It was he didn't even want to be in the movie, period. And then, they came up with the, what if he dies? And he was like, I'm listening. So, yeah,
Kinda
but
like a Harrison Ford to Han Solo situation.
yeah. But I mean,
you
the
got
test
there
screening
before
thing,
I did, AJ. Thank you.
that would make a lot of sense though, the test screening thing, because it kind of leads into a question I was going to ask you guys next, but the ending kind of seems like a couple little parts stuck onto each other. It feels like there's this resolution, and then there's these little bits here and there. It's, you know what I mean? Like, it's kind of like, oh, this nice
what?
smooth ending. Like, the whole Genesis thing, and Kirk is like, oh, I'm okay. All this, and then Spock doing the whole space final frontier. It just kind of. The ending was a couple little things. It just seemed to me like kind of slapped together for some reason. And I guess that makes sense knowing what you just, knowing what you just said. So so I do have a question, but Kale has a question in the chat we got to answer. So I do have one question. Was Khan in the original series before the movie? Because he feels so natural to this movie, although I never saw the series. Yeah, that as we were talking about, Kale, there was an episode in the original series called Space Seed, and that's where Khan appeared. And basically, like, Khan tries to kill Kirk and take over the Enterprise and all this stuff, and Kirk basically banishes him to this, planet SETI Alpha 6, and so
Which
that was like
also makes no sense. If you want to talk about tacked on, like, that's the most tacked on ending I've ever seen of a Star Trek episode. Here's this huge conflict, and then we have 2 minutes left. You're forgiven. Go.
No,
Well,
I get
what?
it. I get it, though. Because remember, like, especially in the future, in Gene Roddenberry's future, like, capital punishment wasn't a thing. Like, the death penalty didn't exist. So Kale, quick recap on Space Seed. The Enterprise comes across this ship adrift in space, and they find all these people stuck in, like, cryogenic stasis. So, not knowing anything more about it, they unfreeze them. And then they find out through research that, oh yeah, this guy was a despot on Earth in what they said was the 1990s. There was like a war against like enhanced people where genetic engineering had created like superhumans, and Khan is one of those people. And then he's already on the Enterprise, and he basically leads an insurrection and tries to take over the ship. So once he's thwarted, then Kirk is left with the dilemma of like, okay, so what do I do with this guy now? I can't kill him. So they're like, we'll just dump him on a planet then, whatever. We got to get him off the ship somehow, and we can't kill him, so there's the next best option.
Yeah, the throwback from the film is the scene with Chekhov where he picks him up with one hand.
Yeah.
First of all, great filmmaking because it establishes that he's physically superior and now mentally superior. But throw that back to the original series. I have the strength of 5 of your men.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Sean Hines here. Yeah. I was wondering if he was going to bring this up.
Yeah.
One of
Vandalorian.
the bits
Sean
about
Hines.
Space Seed. Yeah.
Yeah.
He says
Sean
a bit
Hines.
of a womanizer also.
Hashtag me too. Nice.
Yeah, if you've seen Space Seed, like this ensign or yeoman or whatever, some ginger woman on the crew of the Enterprise like falls for him. Maybe is that the wife that he's talking about having died?
I was wondering about that. I don't
But
know.
she-
We probably should figure that out, and probably should have before we went on the air. But
she swoons for Khan basically like a Bond girl does in James Bond movies,
yeah,
and it's so cheesy, it's so terrible. But he treats her like garbage, and every time he does, she's like, "I'll try harder, just don't send me away." Like, wow, okay, that was 1960s for you. Okay,
Khan's like,
that did not age well.
yeah, God damn, I wish I could just put a bug in you and you just go away. Maybe Kirk did him a favor.
I was gonna say he says that it's the planet exploding and everything that cost him his wife, but I think he just put an earbug in her. He was like, "I'm tired of this bitch."
Yeah. I dropped it. Oh crap, I slipped. Oh no, is it in your ear? Oh, that's gonna suck. But I love you so much. Oh. See, that's the actual plot of Wrath of Khan, is that Khan's trying to cover up for being a piece of shit. He killed his own wife.
This is a clip
Yeah,
from
he
Family
offed his
Guy you're
wife.
describing right here. What really happened in Wrath of Khan? Hey, honey, I found these mealworms in the park. Oh, crap.
So-
Okay,
Oh no, I tripped.
where's the 12th one? What do you mean? Oh, crap.
All right. So I did have a question for you guys, because when I posted this stuff on Facebook, one of our viewers actually had a comment. It was kind of interesting, and he said that he took some film classes, and that there were the professor said that in terms of like all these different things that are, film terminology and how you're supposed to, create a quote unquote perfect film, that there were only 4 perfect movies, and it was I know two of the 3. One's The Godfather, one is Tremors, the first one. I forget what the third one is, but the fourth one is Wrath of Khan. So now that's, of course,
Is the third one The Princess Bride?
No, because that movie sucks ass.
He's wrong.
No,
There's at least
I think
5.
it's 2 Girls, 1 Cup.
God damn it, AJ! Enough of that. That's disgusting and not appropriate to the topic ever. Good Lord, no wonder you're single. It's not the missing tooth. It's your obsession with bringing that goddamn video up on our show. Jeez. So, back to the point. So, I know it's not, obviously, this guy is talking about by the rules of film writing, okay? But to you guys, as movie fans, would you consider The Wrath of Khan a perfect film? Because when I read that comment, I started thinking about it just from a fan perspective. And I have to admit, I kind of would. The pacing is great. It's never slow. The parts where it is slow, it's kind of like right where the crew gets a breather, we get a breather, and you kind of need it. I like the chess match. I thought it was, and this kind of adds to it for me, but in one of those videos I watched, they were talking about, Ricardo Montalban was talking about the fact that he and Shatner never have a scene together. Ever.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. I think this is paced amazingly well. There's always something going on. And even at the end, where like Khan is dead, like that's the end of a movie. Oh, nope. Then you've got this massive moment with Spock. Like, I honestly could say that I might think from a fan perspective that this is a perfect film. Where do you guys stand on that? Don't everybody speak at once.
Joe, oh, okay. All right. Joe's always got an opinion, so I just assume he's going to talk first. Yeah,
if you insist. I don't think Wrath of Khan is a perfect movie, but I think it is the best example of what you do with a franchise where the audience has expectations and there is some pop culture expectations that you want to avoid. There's a lot of what Wrath of Khan does that is simply one guy versus another guy, and it's a cerebral battle. It has very little to do with Star Trek.
Constraints. Yeah,
True.
true. But it's also an example of how constraints can actually boost creativity. The first movie was so expensive and didn't really pay for itself. So the second one had its budget cut significantly. So how do you tell a good story that way? You just set it on one set. It's basically the bridge. And they just they just redressed the bridge to be the other ship's bridge. And that's most of the entire show right there.
I never noticed that. Okay, all right. Damn.
Yeah, like a lot of this stuff, the story kind of came out of like, how can we tell a story as cheaply as possible? So they used as many shots as they could of the outside of the ship from the first movie because they had already filmed it. And then they reused sets as much as possible to save cost. And you get this awesome story where it's, like you said, more cerebral. So instead of like, this effects blockbuster like the first one was, it's just like characters not even interacting. Like you said, I didn't even realize that Khan and Kirk never actually face each other. So it gets you invested in the characters instead of like the spectacle that you're seeing on screen. And the tension is just ratcheted up to 11 because of that. It's awesome.
It almost makes it more personal in that. I never noticed that. I'm really glad you brought that up because now it's like maybe that's why the tension is there. It's almost like a stage play where you have to contain this massive story in a very small physical space and make it work. Like, that's awesome. So I'm sorry to cut you off, Joe.
On stage. You could do Wrath of Khan on stage. That's a great idea. Just draw a line down the middle of the stage, have a mirror image set. One looks great, one looks bad, and just do the dialogue. It'd be great. No, I think...
Nice.
I think we have to look back and say Star Trek to a lot of people was pop culture. Even watching The Next Generation when I was as young as I can remember watching it, I knew who Spock was. I didn't know the ins and outs of the classic Star Trek series. I knew 3 things. I knew Captain Kirk, I knew Spock, and I knew Scotty. And that was it. That was, for some reason, it's like Freddy Krueger. It's one of those things that's just in your brain and you understand it. So I think most people knew what Star Trek was, but we don't have the availability we do today. So what do you do with those people? You can do a cerebral story like Wrath of Khan. It's cheap. You can take almost any good guy, bad guy script and adapt it to Star Trek, give it some sci-fi elements, and it would have worked. This could have been any movie. That's what I'm trying to say. It didn't have to be two guys in space. I can't remember. Think it was Die Hard with a Vengeance that was originally a movie called Simon Says, and they said this would be a great Die Hard. So that's Wrath of Khan. That's why it's good, because it's not a Star Trek story, but you had enough time with characters that people really liked, and let's take them out of their element. It's the same reason I think some of the later movies failed, because you can only take the crew out of the ship so many times before you need to go back and make another episode.
Yep. And to your point, the next time that you get a movie like this, in large part, is the one that JT doesn't like, which is Star Trek VI, which was also made by Harve Bennett, who did this one. There's a lot of similarities between those two movies, and one of the things is that the ships are doing stuff instead of putting the crew on a planet somewhere for the most part. And, it is a sci-fi franchise based around starships zipping around space. Maybe we should spend time on the starships.
Yeah. I mean, okay, I don't mind Star Trek 6, but I think when you look at it in general, it's like that's whatever. I mean, even Star Trek 5 is a little more tolerable than that, even though it's what's at the Oh, we found God. What? Excuse me? That's what you're gonna do? Alrighty.
Oh,
I'm
Star Trek
convinced
5
that
is
movie
the butthole of the
exists
franchise.
just for the Kirk line. Like, somebody asked in passing, what would Kirk say if he encountered God? Why do you need a ship?
Yeah, why does
Run
God
with
need
that.
a starship?
I need
yeah.
does
a
God
90-minute
need with a
script right
starship?
now.
Yeah.
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 We're
By the
getting
way,
sidetracked.
yeah.
We'll not talk about that.
Yeah,
We're banning it from the future show, AJ.
yeah, there you go. Yeah, you guys actually have to do that show because you've been talking about it forever, and we finally just teased the awesome name you came up with as Trek AF. So that's going to be great. You guys got to get your asses in gear. Come on now. So, he's pointing at you, AJ. Look at
We're
that.
busy podcasters, John. I don't know if you know this. Some of us have, well, not all of us have. How many are you up to now? 7 shows?
I have 2. Thank you. I am not that guy. I am not that guy. So, yeah, one of my favorite things about this movie, and again, I hadn't seen this in a few years before revisiting it a couple nights ago to prepare for the show, and this might be a little obvious, but this is something that I never really noticed as much until I was watching it the other night. I really got into the chess match of the whole thing. And, Joe, you've used the term several times tonight, cerebral, and I think that's perfect. Even to the point where, when Kirk finally bests him at one point in the movie, he says, he's Khan, I'm laughing at the superior intellect, like purposely just pissing on the guy, like he knows exactly where to hit him. Even if it's sarcastic, I mean, Khan can't handle that even in sarcasm, So, but I love like the chess match of it. It's, the whole, the first time when they get attacked, like they've got the code, 16309, I want to say it was, like that drop the, the Reliance shields and all these different little things that they do is like, it's cool to see space battles with like, laser blasts going everywhere and ships blowing up and all this other kind of crap. I thought that it was really super interesting. The more intellectual side of this thing is like, okay, who can it like a chess match. I thought that was really, really cool. And then, the whole nebula thing, like, because every time you're like, how are they going to get out of this? Most movies would go into the realm of being cheesy. And yet this one had some really cool ideas. Kirk's like, oh, there's this code in every starship. I only know that because I'm Kirk and I know all this crazy shit. The nebula thing, like, oh, we're even. He's like he's like fishing for Khan. Like, hey, he's got an ego. He'll follow me in. Stuff like that. Like, it was really interesting. Hours will seem like days. That whole thing. Like, there was a lot of really intellectual stuff going on. And even though you do that in place of an action scene, I kind of liked it better. It was really interesting because there was enough action in this for there to be a place for all that kind of stuff. And I loved how they handled that. I mean, what do you think about that, AJ?
Well, it's like less than halfway through the movie when they start fighting. And, if you're just going to have like two ships shooting at each other in space, that's like a 5-minute scene and movie's over. So I love that, like, they both got pot shots in on each other that crippled both ships, and they, like, separated a little bit. It's like, boxers landing like knockout blows and having to, like, separate for a bit and collect themselves. And then when they come back, the nebula is a way to make it so it's not just a shootout again. Now, like you said, it's a mental chess match. So it's more about strategy than, who can get their phasers fixed first.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it dragged it out, and every move seemed like super intense because the ships were already like wrecked from the outset. Khan got the pot shot in, and then Kirk basically hacks the other ship's Wi-Fi to get control and drop the shields. So he gets a pot shot in, and then they're both like, crap, okay, hold on a second, let's collect ourselves.
Yeah, right. Oh, my
yeah,
God.
man.
Hack the Wi-Fi. Yeah, like
it's the first time that the best Star Trek was taken to another level. The best Star Trek is just a chess match. It's, I'm here, you're here. What are we going to do about it? Take that a step further and make it just a little bit dark. Even if you don't have the ending, that is a really good movie because it's believable that you could spend an hour doing that. It's really believable that you're going to spend 90 minutes just taking it a little bit further, making the audience uncomfortable. You more than once think that they're not going to win, but they will because it's Captain Kirk.
Mm-hmm.
That's his whole shtick, right? He will find a way. They talk about the opening scene. Like, how did you win? He's like, I changed the rules. Because nobody had ever done that, apparently, in Star Trek. So that's the precedence, right? If you don't... Bones does the same thing to Khan when he wakes up in the original series. He says... He's got him by the neck. He's got a scalpel. He's like, where am I? He says, if you're going to kill me, you better do it. It's the entire film of Wrath of Khan in 15 seconds. And it's Bones, not Kirk.
That's awesome.
And I think that's so cool because that's how you beat somebody who thinks they're going to win. It's what is Khan at the end of the day? He's a bully. Kirk's kind of a bully, but Khan's a bully at the end of the day. He knows he's superior to you in every way, so you're going to do what he says. Well, if you're going to kill me, can you do it instead of talking? Because I got stuff to do. Otherwise, let me go, and we'll keep talking. Same thing happens in Wrath of Khan. It's a cerebral thing. I'm gonna take everything from you so that you just give up. It's not about killing him. It's about him winning mentally. Well, you're never going to beat Kirk because he's just going to keep changing the rules. Even if he has to put himself and everyone on his ship at risk, he's decided that is more successful outcome than sitting here and just taking a beating or doing nothing. He would rather take that risk knowing that he might get out of that, might die too. But sitting here and just taking the beating, you're not going to get anything. So it's that cerebral, I keep saying it, it's the most classic Star Trek just taken to the next level. And it's the first time they did it, and they would go back to that well so much, and it works so well too.
See, I think that's one of the coolest things about this movie is that in almost any movie where you have a situation like this, adversary versus adversary, it's... You sit there wondering, like, when the one guy has a chance to kill the other and he doesn't, if you don't suspend disbelief, you're going, damn, why didn't you kill the guy? Just kill the guy. But in this movie, like, Khan has those chances to do that, but you never go, why didn't you just kill him? Because they set it up so well that, like you said, Joe, he just wants to best him mentally, and it's about the torture. It's the chase. Like, they set it up so well. Like, you don't have that moment of, oh, my God, like, okay, this is cheesy. He could have just offed him right there. Like,
and how many times have you heard that? Why didn't you kill him? I can do that anytime I want.
Yeah.
I want him to suffer.
Yeah,
look at this.
there's a line right there in the movie when, Kirk is trying to get under Khan's skin. He's like, you're trying to get after me here, but I'm still alive. You keep missing your target.
Yeah,
and then
like a
Khan's
bad
like,
marksman.
Well,
You keep
actually,
missing.
Like a stormtrooper.
Actually, yeah. I've done far worse than kill you. I've hurt you, and I
Yeah.
intend to go on hurting you. Like,
Yep.
Whoa! And then, of course, that leads to the awesome, Khan scream. So, yeah, like that. Khan says right there, he's like, I don't want to kill you. I want to keep toying with you. It's way
Yeah.
more fun for me this way. So, yeah, I love that, and I love the chess match is set up as Khan has the higher intellect, so he can out strategize Kirk, but he's also a man out of time where he doesn't know anything about the 23rd century or space tactics or anything. So that's how Kirk is able to use the code to get access to his ship's computers and able to, like they said, think in 3 dimensions.
Yeah.
So instead of just like shooting straight forward, they're like, what if we shoot down or up?
Yep.
Like,
I mean, Spock says like
Kirk
his
has more
pattern,
knowledge.
Yeah, his pattern displays two-dimensional thinking. Yeah, sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, so you got Kirk who's got more knowledge of the situation going on, but Khan is able to keep up with him and match wits because he is able to adapt faster and he can outthink him. So I love that comparison. Like each one has an advantage on the other, and it's like who can land that killing blow with their attribute before the other one can.
Yep. Sean Hines makes a great point since we were talking about wrestling earlier. If Nimoy is McMahon, then Kirk is Rowdy Roddy Piper. Just when you think you have all the answers, I changed the question.
I'm going to let him have that.
That's
a
phenomenal,
really good comparison.
phenomenal 80s wrestling reference. Way to go. Dude, Vandalore, that's the bomb, Sean. Awesome. Yeah, no, you're right, AJ. It's they both have, they've both got something they're bringing to the table, and it's it's not just Khan is so much smarter. Kirk has more creative thinking. They like I said, that perfect line. Spock says his pattern displays two-dimensional thinking. It's just like it's linear. It's I'm smarter than you, so I can outdo you. So I'm going to do this. Whereas Kirk's like, which plays into the whole Kobayashi Maru thing. It's like which is such a brilliant thing because it's like you just at the beginning you're just like, okay, this the Kobayashi Maru, excuse me.
There you go.
That was my internet connection. That wasn't me stuttering. That was my internet connection going bad again. But the whole Kobayashi Maru thing, it just seems like a thing at the beginning. It's like the unwinnable test. But then they bring it up again later in the movie, and it becomes this important plot point, which is just another part of the chess match. It's like, because, Kirk is like, I don't believe in a no-win situation. He kind of was put in a no-win situation a couple times with Khan, and yet he comes out. And then he gets to the end, and, part of Kobayashi Maru, he was told, you really never have faced death, have you? And, like, he finally beats Khan, and now all of a sudden it's, okay, well, Spock is dying. Like, you're losing your best friend. Like, you may have beaten Khan, and, you once again, you beat the Kobayashi Maru, but now you actually lose to the Kobayashi Maru because you can't escape this time. So, I mean, the more and more we talk about this movie, like, I loved The Wrath of Khan, but the more we're talking about it and the points you guys are bringing up, like, it's bringing out more stuff to think about. And it's making me love this movie even more, man. Like,
yeah.
John Phillips, this is a very good point. This is an interesting and very direct way to phrase it. John Phillips says, Khan is book smart, Kirk is street smart. That's actually a really good way to phrase it. That is that if you really want to boil it down to like basics, that's kind of the way it is. It's kind of the way it is. But yeah, so getting to Spock.
I like the comparison, but I have to disagree with it because Kirk is a starship captain. He's fluent on the processes, the procedures, the mechanics. He understands everything about the situation. His job is to know so that he knows when to deviate. So it's not that that statement is wrong. It's that he's facing someone with a supposed to be superior intellect, and how is he going to outsmart him? Because once you adapt to those processes and procedures, you have to find a way around it. And that's one of the things that makes Kirk a great captain, is he takes everything and still finds a way to win, even when it's unwinnable. But I have a question for you two.
Okay.
Did Kirk win? Did Khan actually win? Or did Spock beat Khan? Kirk's a great captain. He's in the seat. He's fighting the battle. But he lost. The ship was crippled. And Spock sat there completely on his own. Kirk never noticed he left his seat, never noticed he left his post, because he believed after all this time his people were going to be where they were. How many times in the original series do they cut back and show Spock? He's always at his post. Spock
you're right.
beat Khan
You're right. It was Spock
because
if you
Kirk
think about
couldn't
it,
beat him.
Yeah?
Yeah, and Kirk would never have given that command. He never would have sent anybody in to certain death to fix that thing. And as far as we know, the only person who could have survived long enough to do it was Spock because of being a Vulcan. So it's like Spock took it upon himself to go, all right, I have to save the ship because Kirk won't make the hard choice and send me in there. So
He's
he
the
didn't even
science
ask.
officer.
He just took it upon himself. Yeah.
He sat there on his own, did the calculations. I wish there was an audiobook of what Spock was thinking. Leonard Nimoy could read it point by point. This is the radiation level. This is how long a human can survive with this amount of with Vulcan blood, and with the mental focus that I have, it'll take me this long before I lose my eyes. It'll take me this long before I lose my brain. And he probably figured out he's the only one that could do it, or he just decided, could I do it, and took the decision away from everyone else. So he found a solution that no one else was considering.
Yeah, because Kirk would never consider the idea of, leading a lamb to slaughter, basically. Yeah, you're right. Spock basically saved the day in that one entirely. Like, if it was up to Kirk, that never would have happened.
And that's one of my favorite things about Roddenberry. I know John wants to say something, so I don't want to take it away from him, but that's one of the best things about Roddenberry's idea is nobody ever says, you're this, do this. The Next Generation would have their version of that with Data. Picard never said, you're a robot, there's no other way than for you to just go out into space and do this. But Data made that decision for himself eventually. It's like, nope, the only way to win is I just have to embrace that I'm a robot and I can make that jump. But that's my question. Did Kirk
JT,
actually
for
win, or
reference,
did
he's jumping
Spock
ahead to
win?
Star Trek 10.
Spock beat him.
Okay.
He lost to logic. There, I said it.
I'm not disagreeing, and I have a quizzical look on my face because it takes me a long time to think because I'm a goddamn moron. But
I won't hit the button. Don't worry.
yeah. Thank you. I can't disagree with that, but one of the focal points of the movie, if not the focal point, was the needs of the few or the many outweigh the needs of the one, however they say it.
Needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few, or the one.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for correcting me. Again, I'm a moron.
I say he was talking about Kirk when he said that. When he said "or the one," he's talking about Kirk. It's not about you.
Yeah, but wait a minute. I mean, you could say that Kirk still won. I mean, Spock saved the ship, so that's a given. But you could still say that Kirk won because, I mean, Kirk is trying to save the ship. He's trying to save the crew. He's trying to save everybody. Khan still went forward, even when his first in command was like, "Dude, you already won. Like, you got Genesis. Like, let's go." Like, and Khan put everybody at risk for his own selfish desire. So that's the needs of the one, whereas Kirk was coming from the perspective of, oh my God, there's all these people. We got to get the F out of here. The needs of the many. So it's kind of like a metaphor for the entire theme of the movie. So in that aspect, and I'm not disagreeing with you, Joe, because you make an awesome point, and you could definitely look at it that way. But I think you could also look at it as like again, Nerf herder term, AJ. Is it overarching or overarching? Whatever that word is. Overarching theme of the whole thing is the whole, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of few, the one. And Kirk went for the needs of the many, which you could consider to be, unselfish or selfless. And Khan went for the needs of the one, which is selfish, So I think you can look at it both ways, I think. So I can't say you're wrong, but I can't also say that you're 100% right, if that makes any sense.
And that's why it's a perfect movie, because there is no right answer.
See, I brought you. You said it wasn't
raises-
perfect. Wait a minute, AJ. He said it wasn't perfect when I asked that question before. Now he's saying it's perfect because I talked. Yes, and with that, we can
correct.
take Joe out of here. Alrighty, I got my point across. There we go. Joe's out of the show. No, just kidding.
No, I love it.
Hey, he's
We can
back.
talk about this and come up with more reasons. The more we talk about it, the more reasons we find out the things we think are actually right. Like you're saying,
Yeah.
the whole needs of the few versus the needs of the many. There's that line
That's the next movie,
Like-
AJ.
right when Khan demands Kirk's surrender, and Kirk's first thing is like, "Look, you can have me. I surrender. You can do whatever you want to me. Just spare my crew." He says that. He's like, "Look, man, I'm
Yeah.
the needs of the one, me. Screw it. The needs of the many. I'm worried about the needs of the many." Whereas Khan, like you said, had that moment where his first in command was like, "Dude, we got off the planet. You've already proven that you beat Kirk. We don't need to do this again." And Khan is like, "Nah, I want to beat him, so everybody is on my side." Like he put everybody else's needs aside for his own quest for vengeance. So it was exactly opposing viewpoints. That's good writing.
I think it's damn good writing.
Mhm.
It's excellent.
I mean, the whole thing is just, again, when you break it down on a granular level, like I cannot talk tonight. A granular level like we're doing right now. I mean, it's such a well-written movie, and it's fascinating to me that, like, I get it. Like, there's always going to be like that pinnacle of a franchise, right? But with other I mean, the basis of our show is Star Wars, and
almost said it.
I did.
That was
We're
dangerous right there.
We're talking about Star Trek.
were
Shut
I
one
need the
syllable away
Vandalorian to
from-
chime in, please. Thank you.
No, asshole. But in Star Wars, obviously Empire is the peak. But you'll have movies like Rogue One or Revenge of the Sith where tons of fans are like, "Man, that's damn close." I don't think in the Star Wars franchise the Star Trek franchise that you could say that there's a movie that comes anywhere close to Wrath of Khan, even though, like, for example, for me, Star Trek 3 is amazing. I love it. But I can't say that it's anywhere near Wrath of Khan. Oh, all right, Mimar. Mimar, what's up, man? Good to see you. She says lies. All right, you're gonna have to expound on that, Mimar, because that's one word based on like several sentences I said. So you gotta explain your comment there.
Or everything John says is a lie. I'm not sure which one it is.
Oh, shut up. Yeah,
There are a lot of movies that get close. And I think the one everybody will jump to first is First Contact. And as much as I like that movie from the Next Generation point of view, it throws a lot of assumptions at characters that have very present. This isn't like the first series in Wrath of Khan where you've had about 10 years to think about it. This is the Next Generation where you've had less than 5 years to think about it, and Picard is just a different character. Now, I don't think that's a terrible thing, because I think you can have a movie and you can have a TV show and you can deviate a little bit. It was the 90s when those came out, the series, the latter part of the series, and those Next Generation films. So it's okay. What was the expectation with a movie? A movie's always going to be darker. It's always going to be grittier. So it's believable. But I think that's the one that you would lean on to say it's the closest thing to it's as good as Wrath of Khan. It's not the same movie, but at that point, The Next Generation was Data's story, not Picard's story. So maybe I threw 10,000 wrenches in my machine, and I'm fine with that.
I think the other reason that Wrath of Khan stands out head and shoulders above everything else, like to your comparison about Next Generation movies, for example, Next Generation's writing got so good that the characters were really well established, and they did have some continuity towards the end of the series and arcs overall, whereas the original series didn't. So to go into this movie, to go into Wrath of Khan and actually pull on those old plot threads and build off of what came before was such a new concept at the time. It added so many dimensions and layers to the characters in this that just didn't exist before. It wasn't like out of left field. It wasn't like they just invented crap, but they finally really like looked at who the characters were and what their motivations were and decided to drill into that instead of just have them serve their purpose in the story. Like everything that every one of the characters did in Wrath of Khan, it served the story, but it also illustrated who they were as characters too. So it was the first time that the original series characters really got to feel three-dimensional to me. You know?
I
Do
agree.
you feel that way?
Absolutely. You know, hindsight
when you got the
is-
First Contact and Next Generation stuff, it was like, well, we can't really improve on the characterizations, so we just have to throw more special effects at the wall. So I think this did a lot better because the special effects were whatever, and the characters were what really stood out, which, like we said, that's more timeless. Effects will always age, but the story that they told here is still I just watched it before we signed on, and I'm like, this is still great. Like, if I was watching it for the first time now, I wouldn't be thrown off by the effects and go, oh, I can't watch this movie. It looks too dated. I would still be into the characters and the mental chess match and all this strategy going on.
Re-edit this movie.
things-
Take out all the space scenes and just show the people. This is a solid 1v1 battle of wits. It was done before. It was done after. I think this set the example for what would happen for 40 years and is still happening in some ways. So it's just a good story. It just happens to be somebody made the right decision. They took characters that people liked. They found just enough of a nostalgia in something that, looking back, was not successful, but would be successful for a long time. So it was. I don't know if it's luck, but it's just one of those. It's the right choice. However we got there, everything about the movie works.
I mean, do you think that this movie is the reason that Star Trek is successful? And I say that because the original series was how many seasons? Like, what, 3 or something like that? Yeah,
Barely
4.
3.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it was
Joe,
not
you're wrong. It's 3.
okay.
AJ, you're right.
Nice.
I was speaking from the what's the word? I was speaking from the revisionist history where they say now it has 4 seasons.
Oh, boy. See, that was not a chess match.
They filmed it in 3 years.
No.
Yeah.
The
So
Menagerie is the original pilot. They re-edited it and split it in 2 to make 2 episodes out of it. I'm sorry.
good reference there. I forgot about that.
Thank you.
Yeah, but I mean, so the original series didn't really become popular per se until it was in reruns, and even then it was kind of a niche thing. And then, like you guys mentioned earlier, they put the movie out, the motion picture, and it was just like basically a turd. And sadly, it was kind of an interesting concept. The whole V'ger thing. What's V'ger? And then it comes out to be Voyager. It's like a tie back to our world. Like that. To me, it's always been interesting. It's just the delivery was absolutely terrible.
Really cool idea. Really boring movie.
Yes. All right. So John Phillips says season 4 was animated. I thought the cartoon came later, didn't it?
Well, congratulations, John. You stole my punchline. I was going to say that the animated series is the reason everybody loves Star Trek, and then John was going to kick me off the show.
I was not going to, but it wasn't. It
The
wasn't.
animated series was all unproduced scripts from the original series. They had stories ready to go, and then it got canceled, so they had nothing to do
All
with it.
right. Well, good call, John Phillips. Okay. But yeah, so it's like it wasn't this thing. It wasn't this. It was kind of you either got it or you didn't type of thing. But I think Wrath of Khan is so universally loved, and it was so damn good. And then, the next two movies obviously are excellent as well, Search for Spock and The Voyage Home, so they followed up on it, which is good. But I kind of think that Wrath of Khan is the reason that people give a damn about Star Wars or Star Trek, excuse me. I keep doing it.
Damn,
We've never talked Trek on the show. We've been doing this since December of 2015, for Christ's sakes. It'll be 7 years in a couple months. I'm allowed
John,
a couple of
you're
these
still
programs.
programmed
correct,
to not
because
say
this
it.
is the movie everybody says makes Star Wars better
Shut up.
for decades.
Yeah. Well, but dude, I mean, if you think about
This is the template, though. You're right. They've been chasing this template ever since. At least on the big screen, as far as like movies in the Star Trek franchise go. Yes.
Well,
they're always trying to measure up to Wrath of Khan.
But I mean, I think about it. Like after the motion picture, everyone was like, okay, Star Trek is. Even people that wanted to try to get into Star Trek at that point, they weren't into the show. Like, they were. They went to the movie theater like, okay, it's Star Trek on the big screen. It's a sci-fi movie. Okay, whatever. That's cool. And it wasn't good. So the Wrath of Khan was basically that. People are probably like, why the hell am I watching this? Like, I didn't like the show. I didn't like the first movie. And yet the Wrath of Khan was like pretty much like unfucking touchable. And and it's so damn good that people always reference it. Again, to compare it to Star Wars, people damn sure talk about Empire as the pinnacle, but you'll get people that are talking about all the other movies. When you talk about Star Trek, if you go up to somebody and say, "Hey, name me a Star Trek movie," they're gonna go, Wrath of Khan. What else? What's the one with the whales? They'll do that. But you ask somebody about a Star Wars movie.
See, John, Star Wars isn't the only franchise with space whales.
Well, Star Trek did it right. So one thing they did right outside of, other than, what I'm getting at. Fuck those goddamn Purgles. Damn it. All right, well, come on. That's the best. Dynamite drop in, Monty. Mimar, there it is. She says AJ is right. Yeah, so AJ's got a supporter. That's good. He makes a lot of good points, Mimar, as you know. By the way, Mimar, thanks for tuning in again, man. It's been several shows in a row. Great to see you. But yeah, I mean, where do you stand on that, Joe? Because I really think that, like, without the Wrath of Khan, I think Star Trek probably would have died. Where do you stand on that?
I don't know the answer because I don't live in a world where this movie doesn't exist. I think it is undisputable that Wrath of Khan is the reason anyone today has the quantity of Star Trek that they have. You can draw a line to Strange New Worlds from Wrath of Khan and say you would not have that if you didn't have this movie. I don't know if we would have The Next Generation if we didn't have this movie. I think it's an interesting look back on how a show that's really new becomes popular, because Star Trek the series was not the same as Star Trek the films. Everybody
Good
has
point.
tropes and jokes about William Shatner over the years and Rocket Man and all this, but a lot of that I think comes from the films. Parody is a form of flattery, right? So to watch a different William Shatner do this character who's supposed to be older than he ever was on the series. He's an admiral now. They've all grown. So it's a logical next step for a series that opened it up to the rest of... It made Star Trek fun, and it made it popular because it wasn't... I don't know how many people went to see Wrath of Khan that were fans of Star Trek and only fans of Star Trek. I think it was present in the pop culture for sure, but I think most people that went to see this movie were told, you need to go see this movie, even if you know nothing about Star Trek, because how many people have even sat down and watched Space Seed before they saw Wrath of Khan? In a different timeline, this movie is called something else, and Khan is the big reveal that everyone goes, oh, they're in trouble now. it's not. It's Khan. Oh, that's not good. But you have to call it Wrath of Khan, right? Because the mystery wasn't there, so you had to just tell people Wrath of Khan. I think that's the way they got the fans to take notice that this isn't just another Star Trek the Motion Picture where we're trying to be a 3D showcase. That's the biggest problem with that movie is it was filmed and made, the effects were made with 3D in mind. If you take all of that out, there's nothing really wrong with that movie. So this movie being the perfect mix of classic Star Trek vibes with a very dark story, you believe more than once that they're going to fail. I don't see how you have the quantity of Star Trek you have today without this movie.
Yeah, I mean, AJ, where do you stand? I really think that Star Trek would have died without the quality of this movie.
Yes, absolutely. Because the first movie didn't do it. This one failed, they probably wouldn't have made any more. They were smart enough to make it a cliffhanger too, with the little stinger at the end of showing Spock's body landing on Genesis. I wanted to circle back to something though, because when you talked about like how this movie was received and who went to see it and everything, I just did a quick Google and I've got a paragraph from RogerEbert.com to see like what the initial take was back in '82 when the movie came out. And
it's a good source.
And we love to compare our Star Wars and Star Trek here, so I want to read this to you. So Roger Ebert says Khan is played as a cauldron of resentment by Ricardo Montalban, and his performance is so strong that he helps illustrate a general principle involving not only Star Trek but Star Wars and all epic serials, especially the James Bond movies. Each film is only as good as its villain. Since the heroes and the gimmicks tend to repeat from film to film, only a great villain can transform a good try into a triumph. I think that's it in a nutshell right there. We knew the Star Trek cast. We knew Kirk and Spock and McCoy and all those people. Khan is what makes this movie. It's not Kirk being Kirk. It's Khan pushing Kirk to do stuff.
It's very hard for me to disagree with Roger Ebert most of the time. I mean, because dude's watched a lot more movies than I have.
You can't have Star Wars without Vader, and you wouldn't have had the future of Star Trek without Khan. And that's why ever since then, there's always been a villain. The first movie lacked a villain, and it kind of went nowhere. And ever since then, there's always a bad guy, with the exception of 4, The Voyage Home. Every other movie, there's a villain. And in most cases, they have to invent the villain because they don't have them lined up.
Christopher Lloyd dressed as a Klingon. Do I need to say anything else?
Maltz Joy 2. I know some Klingon.
Yeah, right.
Chuta.
Plus, we also got some absolute mainstays in this movie too, which is awesome. The uniforms are referred to affectionately by Trekkies as the Monster Maroons. Those things hung around. They looked like nothing else in Star Trek to that point, but now when you think of like great Star Trek uniforms, these are like top of mind. The general look of the bridge. In fact, a lot of these sets just got straight up reused on Next Generation and in subsequent movies. Like the look of what an Enterprise looks like was really cemented in this movie. So like there's so much that came from this movie that the rest of the franchise history owes it to this movie. Like you can't. I don't know how you argue that any movie or any part of the lore was more important than this movie.
I don't think there's an argument to be made contrary to that. I mean, it's again,
soundtrack's awesome too.
Yeah. I mean, the whole thing is just again, as you guys have been discussing it, and we've been going through some stuff. Man, like I really want to go back and rewatch it like right now because, I see it from my perspective, but you guys have seen different things, and it's like there's some really interesting things that I didn't think about, and that's even within the context of this being just pardon my language, it's a fucking great movie. But as entertaining as it is, it's on a whole different level in terms of like the depth of it and the writing, and man, it's
Dude, as I was rewatching it tonight before we went live, I was thinking, like, I kind of just want to do a watch along. Like, I wish instead of just doing a retrospective like we're doing, we had just turned the movie on and be like, all right, we got a 2 hour.
Tune in to
Yeah.
WTF Fridays,
runtime.
where we will be watching The Wrath of Khan,
Right.
drinking mass quantities of whiskey, and talking about it as we follow
Yep.
through. Hope everybody has their
Yeah,
time
right.
sync ready, and 3, 2, 1, go.
see that's like
Fun fact about watching this movie, though, it's the one movie that's not on Paramount Plus. Of the
They don't own
10
it.
Star Trek movies, it's just weird.
How do they
got
not own this one?
They got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, not 2. I don't know why. I had to rent
here
it
he
on
goes with his
Amazon.
Google. He's on the Google machine. I saw the light hit his face. There he goes.
I was waiting for John to ask the question so I could answer it.
No, so. And
I
we'll
lied.
close up
It
shop
is
here pretty
apparently
soon.
owned by Paramount Pictures. So, yeah, I'm with you, John. I don't understand why they don't have that. They must be
They
getting ready
want-
for a Blu-ray re-release.
They probably well, it is the 40th anniversary, so they probably just want people to buy it because they know people will. I can't
Digitally
watch Con.
remastered.
Hey, I bought it when I went to rent it. It was like $4.99 to rent or $9.99 to buy. I was like, that is worth an extra $5. Like,
Well done, sir.
I think basically each dollar was an extra second and a half of footage, so that's good. So that was not too shabby, but yeah, real quick, and we'll get going here pretty soon. But my reaction to this movie, watching it the other night, was really fun for me because several years ago, I didn't realize I had done this, but I had gone years and years without seeing Raiders of the Lost Ark, which is one of my all-time favorite movies, and that, without a doubt, I can say is a perfect movie. And when I finally rewatched it, I was watching this going, first of all, how have I not watched this in so long? And second of all, like, oh my God, this movie never quits. This is so damn good. And I had the same reaction the other night when I was watching Wrath of Khan. I was like, man, why don't I watch this more? And as it was going, this movie kicks ass. Like we brought up all, Joe, to use your word, cerebral. We brought up all the cerebral aspects of it, the great writing and all the, the metaphor, the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few and the one, the Khan versus Kirk and all these different things that they've done. But at its heart, I mean, let's face it, this is a nerd show. It's just a kick-ass movie. I mean, final thoughts, guys. You guys on Wrath of Khan?
Well, since you're going to take my
Yeah,
shtick, John, and ask me for final thoughts, I'm going to say that Wrath of Khan is
See what I did there?
one of the greatest science fiction films you can watch because you can watch it with anyone. I think Wrath of Khan is a movie you can stand up to anyone, even if they're not a fan of this type of science fiction, and say, you don't have to believe anything. This is just two people that hate each other. And it's going to pay off in a way that if you can find somebody who doesn't know what's coming, you might have looped in a new Star Trek fan forever. Because this movie takes a few risks with long-standing characters, but I think that's important because it sets up a precedence for what you can do with characters that people love. In another time, 20 or 30 years from now, you could call this a comic book movie. And where they go with the franchise, there's more than one thing that the MCU has taken from this. So if you want to know where it came from, if you want to know where a lot of these science fiction tropes and storytelling tropes came from, it's really hard to say that it's not Wrath of Khan since Wrath of Khan. Go watch this movie.
Sales pitch. AJ,
Yeah.
final thoughts, Wrath of Khan.
The movie doesn't age, and that's the best thing I can say for it. We're watching a 40-year-old movie, and we're like, this is as good as when it came out. Maybe even better
Yep.
now.
Yeah.
That's it.
Mimar says, Nerf Herder Mystery Science Theater 3000. I don't think you want that, Mimar. Holy God.
All right, we can make that happen. We just have everybody go into shadow, and we'll superimpose. We'll do the OBS thing where we clip it and put it in the seats, And then John starts drinking and madness ensues.
Oh, boy. Yeah. Isn't that always what happens when John starts drinking?
So when are we going to get
boy.
another Star Wars Against Humanity?
We do
That
have
needs
to
to
do
happen.
that. We do
I've
have
been
to
waiting.
do that.
Well, it really depends on when John's schedule opens up, and thankfully, as the weather turns to shit, he doesn't play as many shows, so he's going to have more availability.
I have an entire discography of music that I can play right now, so he doesn't have to go play a show. It's all his music, by the way.
Yeah, but oh, stop it. We're not going there.
I was going to
We're
say,
not
if
going
you
there.
played that, he wouldn't get booked ever again.
Nice. Well, man, so Joe, thank you very much. Wait, Kale. Ooh, can I play, please? Yes, Kale. So, yes, we play Cards Against Star Wars, and we do invite viewers/listeners to play. So, yeah, we are definitely going to do that. So, yes, if you would like to play, you can. I would have to say, guys, it'll probably be like Christmas break or something because I have 2 straight weeks off of everything except for December 29th. I'll be a little bit busy, AJ. How about you? You got plans on December 29th, don't you?
I think I feel like shopping for whiskey in Kentucky. If I have a good enough excuse to be in the area.
Well, what if we did that and then, I don't know, drove maybe 5 minutes and then go watch the Cincinnati Philharmonic Orchestra. Yes, I'm going to call them Cincinnati. It's football season. Screw you, Bengals. Cincinnati Philharmonic Orchestra play the score to the worst Star Wars movie, The Force Awakens, while we watch it on the big screen.
You invited me to that, right, John?
You got to get tickets, man. That is that is an AJ and JT special. That is, we get 8 hours of road time, just bullshitting. We get drunk watching Star Wars, and that's like one of the very few times AJ and I just get to hang out as brothers and like fellow nerds. Mm-hmm. So, but if you want to crash it, feel free. We got a hotel room, so there you go. But yeah, I'm thinking those 2 weeks might be a good time to do that. I'm off. The only thing I'm doing is, like I said, HR trip to Cincinnati, and then I've got a gig on New Year's Eve. Other than that, we definitely got to make that happen because that was definitely a complete and total blast. So we'll figure that out. If you guys want to jump in on some Cards Against Star Wars with us, just shoot us an email at nerfherdercouncil@gmail.com. We'd love to have you guys on camera playing along with us. It's a great time. We did it once before, and that was an event to say to say the least. So that was good. But Joe, thank you very much for making time to come on, dude. I know that you've been on with AJ on some WTF Fridays, which, guys, if you have not checked out the WTF Friday episodes, please go do so. I'm not just shilling for this because it's mine and AJ's show, not because Joe was on a few of them. Like I think that they are excellent. AJ's building Legos while he's talking and kind of filibustering, and Joe was on a couple of those, and they are excellent episodes. So check those out if you have not. There, just look up WTF Fridays on our channel. You'll find them right there. But yeah, Joe, I've been on Discography several times. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate it. It's great to finally have you on with me and AJ here. We could not have done right. We could not have done a Star Trek episode without you. Because we have to tease the upcoming podcast. Who knows when the first episode will be? AJ's fault. Of the brand new Star Trek
Busy
podcast.
guy, what the hell?
Trek AF. So if you're into Star Trek and the Nerf Herder Council, keep an eye out for that. AJ and Joe are going to be doing their own Star Trek show. So, okay.
Presented by DiscussMetal.com.
All right. Vandalorian. Great to see you, man. It says, good show, boyos. Great to see you, Vandalorian, man. Sean, hope you're doing great, buddy. John Phillips is very wrong. He says, the worst Star Wars film is Rise of Skywalker. No, that would be The Force Awakens. I'm sorry, because The Force Awakens is a remake of another Star Wars movie. The rest of them are original. Thanks for playing, John. Kale says, AJ, please send logos when you get a chance. Kale obviously missed the beginning of the show. Kale, he said he is going to send those to you, and he apologizes for not having done so. So back to the show close. Yeah. Joe, thanks again for jumping on, man. Like, you're a big Trek guy, so we could not have done this without you. Thanks for your insight. Thanks for making time to come on. Thank you for having me on your show. Guys, Joe has a phenomenal show called Discography Discussion. They're up to what, Joe? 270 plus episodes, I think it is now.
284, John. You were on a recent Van Halen episode. Everybody needs to go check out. And we've been doing this for a long time. There's a lot of bands, and there's a lot of live shows, and there's a lot of Patreon views at patreon.com/discuss metal. We have some sweet perks.
Nice. Yeah, so basically what they do
JT,
on there.
what do we have coming up on our show?
We have a lot of stuff coming up on our show. We definitely have a lot of stuff coming up as I pull up my calendar. Kind of threw me for a loop here. I wasn't expecting that.
You're not prepared, John.
Yeah. No,
Try to set you up.
What we have is a different show date. So usually it's every other Wednesday, which would put it on the 28th of this month for us, as I can't talk. Man, you really threw me for a loop, AJ. Thanks for doing that. In a good way. I would have forgotten to do this. So normally we'd be on Wednesday the 28th, guys, but we are actually going to be on Thursday the 29th. So it's going to be Thursday at 8:15 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we are going to be discussing the first 4 episodes of what I'm sure is going to be the most amazing show ever, Andor. So we're going to be doing Andor.
Droids.
Oh, shut up. Man, why didn't we boot him? So again, we are on a Thursday in 2 weeks, not Wednesday. So we will be discussing Andor. And then we are going to have a couple of Halloween episodes in October. The first one is going to be on Wednesday, October 12th, and it's going to be Hellraiser versus Hellraiser. And what we mean by that is the original Hellraiser film, 1986, something like that. The original Hellraiser against what is sure to be the craptastic remake coming out on Hulu in early October, the remake of Hellraiser. So we're going to do the original versus the remake, and I can't wait to do that because just the few plot points I have read about this new Hellraiser, it's going to suck.
Now, John, no time for tears. It's a waste of good suffering.
I love it. See, that movie's so goddamn good. See, that's the other thing. Even if the new one was great, I would still like the original because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. I love it. And then on October 26th, we're going to do another Halloween episode. We have not picked the topic yet, but we are going to have a very, very special guest, at least for me. Actually, for you too, AJ. My stepdaughter, Drew, is going to jump on the show. She's never podcasted before, but she is a monstrous horror movie fan. So for our second Halloween episode in October, we're going to get my stepdaughter on, and we're going to do something about horror movies because, let's face it, they're friggin' awesome. And so we're going to do that. And, man, I think on November 9th, AJ, we might be doing a Rogue One episode. That is my suggestion. And it's basically pretty much going to be titled Why Rogue One Kicks Ass. We've talked about it here and there, and I think I might want to do it that day.
I think that'll dovetail nicely because I think that might be right around the time that Andor wraps up its first season.
There it is. So we got all kinds of good stuff coming up. See, had you not teased it, AJ, I would have totally blown it. So our next show will be on Thursday. Why do I host this show? I'm completely unnecessary at points. So our next show, guys, is Thursday, September 29th, and we will be discussing Andor. And after that, we're back on our Wednesday schedule. So thanks for tuning in, and please check out the future shows. Joe, again, thank you very much for coming on. Plug Discography Discussion one more time.
If you're a fan of all things heavy music and you want to hear a lot of podcasts about heavy metal bands and all things from all genres, you need to go to discussmetal.com, where we have so many podcasts: Discography Discussion, Discuss Metal, and Discuss Metal Live. That's my plug.
See, this is why you're a host. You've got the voice. I just stumble over show closes.
Do I need to do a plug for you, John? Do I need to put the voice on and close out the Nerf Herder?
No, that one I can do. Thanks for tuning into the Nerf Herder. No, sorry. But thanks, Joe, again for coming on. This was a blast. We'll definitely have to talk some more Trek going forward.
You said it.
Hey, look, I love The Search for Spock, man. I would love to talk about that. Voyage Home is always a crowd favorite if you're into Star Trek. So, AJ, great episode, man. This was a blast. One of our longer shows, to be sure, but this was a lot of fun. I'm glad you had the idea for it. So thank you for bringing this up a few weeks ago. That was great. And to everybody in the chat, John Phillips,
Good job, AJ.
Sean Hines, Chris Mocked, KXM Scary, good to see you, man. Kale McLeish, and of course, our good friend Mimar, always good to see you. And guys, again, we will be back right here on Facebook and YouTube live in 2 weeks, but on Thursday, not on Wednesday. It will be Thursday, September 29th, and we will be discussing Andor, the first 4 episodes. Don't forget, if you are watching on YouTube, click that like button, click that subscribe button so you get notified every time we go live. And if you'd like to download audio versions of the podcast, just Google Nerf Herder Council Podcast. We are everywhere. Thanks to my wonderful brother, AJ. Guys, it has been a blast. So, once again, I am your host, JT at Dog Pound Jedi. He is AJ.
At Drake Adams 579.
He is Joe.
At Discuss Metal Joe.
And we will catch you next